Evening, Chantal. I hope you are doing all right today, this evening.
Good evening. I'm doing good, thanks, and you?
I think you are slightly, I didn't hear that quite clearly.
Sorry, can you hear me better now?
Yes, I can hear you better.
Okay. I'm good, thanks, and you?
I'm doing all right. Thank you. So while we wait for a few students to join in, let's give it perhaps an extra 2 minutes. I just want to find out from you, how did you guys find the assignment and what the process was like for you? Anyone can share what the assignment was like for you? Yes, Chantal.
Alright, good day, everyone. For me, the assignment was good. Like, I did not experience any challenge. I enjoyed reading the e-reserves and I learned a lot.
Mm, mm, yeah. No, I'm very glad. I'm very glad, Maria. And I believe, Maria, you and I, we've been communicating quite frequently, which I like, because to me um, it shows that you really wanted to do the assignment to the best of your ability. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks.
Just goodness, Angeline says, I have a feeling that my stories are going to differ widely from the ideas I wrote down in the essay. And you know, to be quite honest, that is actually very normal, Angeline. It's completely normal. Or at least in my opinion, I think it is. I think it is. It is quite normal. But other than that, I think we can. I think we can start. I just want to get confirmation from you all that you can see my presentation. And give me a thumbs up that you can all see my presentation. Okay, perfect. So once again, an official warm-up to today's workshop, which is going to focus on how to edit a drama and a screenplay. And I think, well, I'm hoping that after listening in and also engaging in this workshop, we will use it as a source of inspiration. We'll use it as a source of inspiration that it will be very helpful for the portfolio, for the upcoming portfolio. I see that there is a message. So Chantal says, I'm not sure if it's the signal on the side, but the sound is not very clear, distorted a bit. Okay, let me see if I can close my door in my study room. Hopefully it'll be better. Okay. Is the sound much better now? Okay, perfect. My sincere apologies for that. So, as I was saying that, what I do hope from this session that you will all see it as a source of inspiration to continue putting in a lot of effort in assessment 3, which is the portfolio. And I know that for many of you, it can cause some kind of anxiety or stress because you often find yourself asking, am I really on the right track with this portfolio? What if maybe the marker does not like the story or the play that I've written. So with that today, I'm just going to proceed. So what we're going to be doing in today's session is that we are going to be looking at the following: how to edit a play. In other words, you need to be able to familiarize yourself with the format as well as the components of a play, and we're going to be looking at a practical example where I ask you to engage with the text in as such that you need to signpost sections or parts of that play that actually need to be corrected, or parts that are actually incorrect that need to be rectified. Then after you're going to familiarize yourself with the format of the screenplay. And you will notice that in today's session, I'm going to be speaking a lot about that because I found that in the previous session, I only did almost like an overview on how to write the screenplay. Then we're going to be looking at components in editing a screenplay. And for those who are looking to venture into writing for film and television, I will also touch on pitching your screenplay. So with that being said, I'm just going to do a quick check-in with you all, and I'm going to start by reading this really lovely quote by Robert McKee, and he says that all writing is discipline, but screenwriting is like a drill sergeant. So I would like you then, in a space of 1 minute, i.e. 60 seconds, to just comment on the chat box where you essentially summarize how your week has been, either inserting an emoji, a GIF, or even a phrase for that matter. So I'm just going to give you 60 seconds, and then you can comment on the chat box. While you are commenting, here is my response. Thank you, Angeline, for sharing. You know, honestly, during this week, I was actually, I was coming to this realization that, while I was sick, I realized that, as academics, one thing that we are really, really good at, and I'm going to use the word quite figuratively, is that we like to get quote unquote high, but on caffeine, because we have a lot of stuff that needs our attention. We have very tight deadlines. If it's not at work, and it's at school. So as a result, to cope with the tight deadlines and the demands, we simply get high on caffeine, which is coffee or green tea. Maria says, my week was good until I lost my glasses at the university of Limpopo Fair on Saturday. Oh my goodness. So sorry, Maria. That's the worst. That's the worst. Yeah. Reading glasses are like an extension of myself, because I use my glasses quite often. So thank you so much for sharing. I see we still have some people typing how they read the screen. So while people are typing in the chat box, I decided to use the gift words, who I believe, as we grow up, more and more of us actually start to relate to Squidward and SpongeBob. And this sick. I've been very, very sick, and thankfully I'm actually on the mend. But I found myself, just feeling grumpy while in bed and sick. Sick, sick. Chantal says it was Happy's birthday. Happy birthday to him, by the way. And lots of cooking to do on top of the assignments that was due. Yes, most certainly. I can totally understand, Chantal. Happy birthday to him. And Angeline says had a sandwich. I had a deadline sandwich last week. Yeah, I actually picked up on that quite a lot. I picked that up from a lot of students last week, just before I went on sick leave, that I was getting a lot of requests from students who were asking extensions on assignments because they had they had certain challenges that led to not being able to submit assignments on time. Thank you, Maria. Yes, I'm on the mend. I'm on the mend right now. Yeah, much better than um, before, but slightly on the mend. So see, Michael Lee is the type of just this week has been. Oh yes, Michael, I can totally relate. Barely surviving, but definitely grateful. To be quite honest, Michael, that is how I am feeling right now with my with my PhD. Barely surviving, but getting there. But at the same time, I'm also very grateful. And even today, when I was in the office, after marking assignments, I was like, okay, start drafting my next novel, and I'm going to make sure that this novel is written is done, in a month and a half before I send it for publication. But it's that moment that I have where I'm like, ish, I'm barely surviving, I'm getting there, and I'm also grateful. So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. So what we're going to do is that we're going to do a little bit of a brainstorm when it comes to editing a plan. So we all have our favorite plays that you might have encountered this while actually doing a prerequisite, the THL module, where you are asked to analyze a play of your choice. And there's always that one play you like, that you used in the prerequisites. And, as such, from a playwright's point of view, I want you to then think of a play that you felt was actually your least. So when you were doing your prerequisite, there was a play that you loved so much, you decided to use it to either write an essay on it or to analyze on it. And then there was also that one play, perhaps you can ish. I don't think I'm actually going to use this play to analyze in my THR assignment. So I want you to comment on the chat box on what you consider as your least favorite play that you've either read or even watched, and just briefly explain why it is your least favorite. So I'm going to give you roughly 2 minutes to think about it, and then comment on the chat box, or you can even raise your hand and share why you thought it was your least favorite. I see Angelique. to writing, especially for publication, I tend to work like a or write like a mad dog. So yeah. So while everyone else is sharing, writing in the chat box, I'm actually going to share two plays that I thought were my least favorite. And the first one, and if you disagree, the first play that I thought was my least favorite was Samuel Godot's Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot. And the reason why I thought it was my least favorite was because the way that Beckett wrote the play, he was strictly prescriptive as to how the play must be performed, how the characters are supposed to move on stage and things like that. Like he was being really like overly meticulous, let me put it that way. Overly meticulous with his stage directions and overly prescriptive with his stage directions in the play. And for me, I felt that he's the type of writer who strictly sticks to the rules instead of slightly bending the rules because we are like the world that we live in is constantly changing. And then my second least favorite play would be um, simply because I felt that the dialogue, especially in scenes where the characters were um, telling their stories, the things that they went through, I felt that it was more the experiential aspect of it. I felt that the playwright could have delved deeper into the horrors that certain characters experience because they were victims of sexual violence or violence. I felt the playwright really could have been really gotten into like explicit details when characters would retell stories from the past. Um, Maria says, perhaps last take by Samuel Beckett. It is difficult to understand that. Yes, yeah. Beckett's work by nature is it's not easy to discern right away, simply because Beckett is the type of playwright who is very prescriptive. And sorry, Lorraine Valentine says, "Why My Beloved Country" by Alan Paton. It is so difficult for me to understand. Yeah, I can definitely agree with you on that. I also think that when it comes to theater studies and also performance studies in general, um, people always use text. They don't use contemporary texts when it comes to performance studies or even learning how to write a play. Instead, we use text that was published, like many years ago that is, outdated in terms of the writing style, the setting, the dialogue, and so forth. Angeline says, Pantomime by David Walcott. It's so uncomfortable to see the ignorance and arrogance of Harry of very, very interesting. Reminds me also of another playwright, John Osborne's Look Back in Anger. I think that was written in 1956. Yeah. kind of reminds me of that play as well. So Chantal is typing. Okay, so Chantal says, only play I can't remember reading is The Cursed Child. And I somewhat enjoyed it due to it being part of the Harry Potter franchise. I usually prefer reading novels as opposed to plays. One of my largest for the semester is Shakespeare, and it's extremely hard to understand and read his plays at the same time. So I prefer watching them and enjoy them so far. Only watched Hamlet and busy watching. Thank you so much, Chantal, for watching. Another suggestion, especially for students who are doing a module on Shakespeare, trying to understand like his plays in its entirety is always to watch the visual adaptation. So, for example, when I was trying to understand Shakespeare's thing, I watched um, RAN, is it Kage Musha by Akira Kurosawa, the late Japanese filmmaker, in which it was his adaptation of Shakespeare's Macbeth. And then he also did a film called Ran, RAN, which is an adaptation of Shakespeare's films, where he did his adaptation of Shakespeare's texts. I actually got to understand Shakespeare much better, and I ended up enjoying reading essays and on Shakespeare. So thanks everyone for sharing. So with that being said, I want you to remember that, when you do this portfolio, just remember that all writing is about creating your own world. So with playwriting, you're essentially creating your own world. And in essence, what I'm referring to is that you're creating a utopia that you as a writer see fit. Create characters that you are comfortable with, the kind of dialogue, also devise dialogue that you find comfort in, the setting that resonates with you. Because at the end of the day, we are living, in the midst of a paradigm shift, right? So don't restrict yourself when you are creating characters. Don't restrict yourself. Don't restrict yourself when trying to create dialogue for characters, because at the end of the day, the piece of writing, any kind of piece of writing, it is literally a utopia that you have built from scratch, right? And as markers, what we are looking for is merely the technical aspects of that text. So if, for example, I come across a portfolio, right? And it's a play. The student wrote a play about, so and so having an affair. And then for me, I felt that, I didn't like the plot. I didn't like how the play ended. We're not going to mark you down for that. We're literally looking for the technical aspect of devising a type of literary text. And this is why I'm putting a lot of emphasis on the idea from a philosophical point of view that writing is about creating a utopia that we see fit, and creating and these characters, creating a setting, an environment, and dialogue that must resonate with you. So when you edit the play, please remember that you have to establish the sequence of the events in your play. And you might find that at times it can be a little bit tricky, especially if you are asked to write a one-act play, right? So in the case of writing a one-act play, it all boils, the sequence of events boils down to the dialogue, the dialogue exchange between the characters. Is there tension? Is there tension between these characters that is literally leading up to the climax, to what I like to call the Big Bang. If you have any questions about that first point, please feel free to ask in the chat box. Always remember that when you are editing your text, it must be indicative. And again, it ties back to the vision that you have. In other words, the utopia that you have created, for this play, the scene, the makeup, what are your characters, wearing? What kind of movements are they doing, on stage? Is your protagonist, while he is performing a soliloquy, for example, is he going to be reading a newspaper? Is he going to be, for example, brushing his hair? Is he, for example, going to be having coffee drinking a cup of coffee by himself? While doing these kind of movements, and also the lighting. So the lighting should kind of speak to the genre of your text, and also um, the overall mood or the aesthetic of your play. So if, for example, you are going to be writing a play about a horrific murder that took place, obviously you're not going to be using an aesthetic that's light and light. Your aesthetic is going to be quite dark to just convey the sense of, okay, this is what the play is about, and it's underpinned by themes. And the dialogue here that you are actually writing, whenever you write dialogue in your play, it has to be embedded in the theme of your text. So, for example, okay, if we look at this line, I can't remember anything. All I know is that I woke up and my baby, my sweet Anastasia, is not in her crib. What does that dialogue suggest in terms of theme? What do you think the theme is? Just by reading that line. If you can comment on the chat box. Just by reading that line, what do you think the theme is when you read that line in a play? Because remember, I said that your dialogue, when editing, it must be embedded in the overarching theme of your play. Okay, so Maria says the theme is an unexplainable loss of the baby. Good, good, very good. Any other, is there anyone else who can share what they think the theme is just by reading that line? Just remember, that the markers are going to be looking at this particular aspect when marking your portfolio, that is the dialogue incongruent with the theme of your play. So Angeline says contribution because they can't remember. Good. Yes, that's very, very good. So while Michael is, there we go. Michael says maybe a feeling of disorientation. Very good. So all of your answers are actually correct, and this is why I really have to stress the importance of when you are writing lines or assigning lines to the characters, right? You can't just make up lines for the sake of ish. I have a deadline and I need to make sure that I get this assignment done on time. You have to write lines for your characters that have to speak to the theme of your play. And I can tell you right now for sure, for 100%, it's that it is one of the aspects that the markers are actually going to be looking at when marking. Last but most importantly, when you edit your text, remember that your dialogue should be embedded or should be incongruent with the role that your character is actually playing. So, is the dialogue indicative of a protagonist, anti-hero, or even an antagonist? So, I wanted to then look at an example that I thought was quite interesting. So I see, Michael, your hand is up. You can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. What if the character that we came up with is actually sitting up a front? Because I think one of my plays that I came up with, the I suppose the antagonist is basically trying to one up the other characters. So he's playing this role. Do I
Mm,
put certain emotions or indications in brackets to say he says connivingly or something
yes,
like
yeah, absolutely. Because
because
Michael,
sorry,
yes,
sorry.
yeah, I was going to say absolutely yes, 100%. Because by doing that, what you are also doing in essence is that you are adhering to the format of writing a play. And by indicating that this is how your character is saying a particular line, as the marker, we also get the sense of, oh, okay, this person here is actually an antagonist or a protagonist trying to achieve a certain goal. So yeah,
Okay,
you're
perfect.
definitely on the right track there.
I have another question, but I can't remember. Oh, I know it's nothing to do with our session at the moment. However, there is a question in a instruction in the poetry section that's a bit confusing. I'm not sure if it's
Mm.
a typo or anything. However, it says you need to write two, what's it called? Two haikus.
Mhm.
Are we supposed to do one of each, or can we choose
Is this for the
one?
373701?
Sorry, this is for the 3701. I forgot to mention. Sorry.
No worries. Um, okay, so for the 3701, assessment 3, I think this is where you are expected to produce 10 poems, right?
Yes, a collection of 10
And
poems. Yes.
yeah, yeah, so with the haiku, yes. Um, if you are writing a haiku, you are expected to produce two because the haiku, there's the tanka and then there's the haiku where the tanka, I believe, sorry, that the haiku is actually originated from the tanka.
Yes, yes, yes.
So yeah, yeah. So I think that is what the question actually means. However, what I will do is that I am going to follow up with Prof because he actually set the assignment just to get clarity because I don't want to
Oh,
I don't want to
uh,
give you misinformation when
thank
you
you.
know the the instruction is otherwise. But I think that is what the question is asking. However, I am going to follow up
So,
with
sorry, the only reason why I asked is seems like we'll have more than 10 poems
mm, yeah,
if
yeah,
we are
yeah,
required to do. So just to be clear, we are supposed to do one of each
yeah, yeah,
category or form, I suppose.
yeah,
Okay, thank
yeah.
you. And
Correct.
we can
But
get back
but
to
I'm
today's class. Sorry.
okay. No worries. But I'm still going to follow up with Prof. just to make sure that that we're on the right track. So thanks for asking your question. Very good question, by the way.
Thank you so much.
No
Last
problem.
question, I promise.
Yes.
Um,
No, you can ask
can
as
we
many times as
send
you want.
our rough drafts maybe a week or two? I'm assuming 2 weeks in advance would be best. Just to see if we're on the right track.
Yes, listen, we always encourage students to submit drafts, right? Just so that we can give them preliminary feedback. And we often find that students who actually do that, they end up performing really, really well in the portfolio, especially the 3701 portfolio, because the 3701 portfolio is actually not an easy one, simply because of what is required of you and also how you will be marked. So we always
Okay.
encourage students to submit drafts, but they have to do it at least, usually the cut-off date is 2 weeks before the actual due date. So you are more than welcome to send a draft.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. So with point number 4, so the fourth one, I say that when editing, your dialogue has to be embedded into what role your character is playing. So is the dialogue indicative of a character who is a protagonist? Is it indicative of a character who is an antagonist or even an anti-hero? So an example here would be, and I would like you to take a guess whether this is a protagonist, an antagonist, or an anti-hero. So this character says, the trouble with loyalty to the cause is that the cause will always betray you. And I thought that this particular quote is from one of the Transformers film movies. I think, yeah, Transformers Age of Extinction. And I felt when this character Lockdown said that, I was like, oh my goodness, this resonates with so many of us. So I want you to take a guess whether this is a protagonist, antagonist, or an anti-hero. Just by reading that line. The trouble with loyalty to the cause is that the cause will always betray you. So Angeline and Maria say it is an anti-hero. So I'd like to then know from you, why do you think this is an anti-hero saying this? Why would you argue that this is actually an anti-hero instead of an antagonist? Why do you think that this would be said by an anti-hero and not a protagonist to an antagonist, for example? So Angeline gives a very interesting answer. Angeline says because they were loyal to the cause, and in hindsight was betrayed by the cause. That's a very interesting point, Angeline. Maria says he is against winning or prevailing. He is negative. That's also a very interesting point. Because what if Maria, perhaps the reason why he is negative is because of this betrayal of the cause that he was actually fighting for. And because of this betrayal, he now sees the world in a different light. And as a result, he's someone who is just really negative, has a negative perception of the world. So I see Michael, he is busy typing. It's also one of the things that we as Marcus look for, that the lines that you give your characters should be indicative of whether they are protagonist, antagonist, or an anti-hero. That's why sometimes when you get an assignment back, a very a common comment that pops up is it feels forced. This line feels forced. So Michael says, I agree, and anti-hero, not quite the villain. It seems like he's highlighting the flaws and clown with being a hero. Good. However, the exit is short, so I can't really tell whether he is vindictive or not. Okay. So most of you who said anti-hero is actually guys are actually correct, and your reasons are actually correct. And this is why I am stressing the importance of your dialogue being embedded in the role that your character plays. Your dialogue must actually be a clear indicator whether this character is a protagonist, antagonist, or even an anti. So what we're then going to do is that we're going to look at the following still shots, which is actually from a stage play. It's from one of Tyler Perry's stage plays called Medea goes to jail, right? Now from these shots, these still shots, there's 6 of them, right? What I want you to select at least one and try and guess, right? Just by looking at the costume, the action, and also the overall demeanor of these characters, what do you think the dialogue would be in one of those still shots? Or what the stage directions would be in one of the still shots? So just select one out of the 6 and comment on what you think the dialogue would be or what you think the stage direction would be. So while you are thinking and coming up with an answer, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select still shot number 3. The gentleman who is wearing a suit. And by the way that he is like stretching his arms, right, and his facial expressions, I would think that he is saying, what are you going to do? Because his facial expressions don't show any kind of fear, resistance, or anxiety. His body language is very like, okay, so what are you going to do? It's almost like he has this arrogant look on his face. What are you going to do? So I think that in terms of dialogue, this character is saying, what are you going to do? And in the stage directions, I would say, I would write in brackets, stretching, stretching his hands, and then write, what are you going to do? So just select one out of the 6 still shots and guess what you think the dialogue would be or what the stage directions would be. So I'm just going to give you guys 2 minutes to take a guess and then we will reflect, talk about it. I just realized while I was waiting, I actually realized that there was a bit of an echo in my study room because there was TV was actually playing in the living room. And also, some anime was actually being playing. It's the echo sound at the beginning of the session. So Maria chose number one, and the man, the dialogue for the man says, "It seems like you want me to remind you who the man is." Yeah, good, very good, very interesting. You also on point, and I think it is derived from the line is derived from his overall posture, like almost like he's trying to show that he's actually dominant. And then Lorraine chose number two, still shot number two. Um, where the dialogue is, "Child, go outside. You don't want to see this." Yes. Also, I 100% I agree with you, Lorraine. Yeah, I would also write something like that. Okay. And then Michael here writes, the dear response to the man's cockiness by showing she means business. I can imagine her saying, I can imagine her saying, "Hold the popo, please." And the stage direction is Medea and the man go back and forth. The angle at which she's standing indicates while she means business. The stance is unserious at the same time. Basically, she's putting him in his place by giving him the scare. Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, you also correct. So do you see how using as an exercise, using still shots can actually help you write dialogue that is realistic, stage directions that are actually realistic, that speak to the theme of the play, and also the type of characters that are in the play, whether this is a protagonist and an antagonist. So now what we're going to do is we're going to now get into the screenplay. So before we get to the screenplay, we're going to do what we did with the play and do a brainstorm. Right. So with the brainstorm, so again, we all have our favorite films, right? And then there's that film where we're like, oh, good, I hated this film with the passion. So please comment on the chat box and state what film you thought was your least favorite and why. So while you guys are thinking on what your least favorite film is, I'm going to share which one was my least favorite, which is a Netflix film. So just a quick 60 seconds. What is your least favorite film and why is it your least favorite film? So while you guys are typing, I'm going to share that my least favorite film, which was a Netflix film called Homewrecker, directed by, I think it was also written by Stephanie Zweiner. It was released on Netflix last year. So I thought this one, it had a really good storyline with themes of love, lust, and greed, but within the South African context. And I thought the characterization was actually quite good. But the biggest letdown for me was that the language, right, in like dialogue for these main characters was very generic and very cliche. And because of that, the scenes actually felt flat. I also felt that the actors, even though this is a South African film, the actors didn't, deliver some of the lines in their mother tongue. And it begs me to question, you know, had they delivered some of the lines in their mother tongue, whether it is Afrikaans or this process in Tswana, right? Would it have made a much stronger impact on the writing of the films? In other words, would these themes of love, lust, and be conveyed much better? So I thought that this was probably my least favorite film, of course, of those reasons. And then as a favorite film of mine, I would say probably the genre films. From one chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. Because I think the script writing is actually really good. And the scenes, in my opinion, are well executed. So I'm just going to wait for the few people to type their answers. You can also say, you can also reference perhaps a drama series that was your least favorite. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a film. So, for example, if you were to ask me which series was my least favorite, I would say A House of the Dragon, because I felt the writing was catastrophic from start to finish. Well, season two, writing was catastrophic from start to finish. So there are some interesting answers. So Mary says Uzan, it lacks creativity. It is easily predictable. Its storyline limits the talents of actors. It doesn't really show that they are in a creative world. Interestingly, Maria, I do have to agree with you because I felt that the first two seasons, two or three seasons of Ozano were actually really, really good because of the authenticity and because of that creativity. And then I think one of the writers of the show left, and after that, after the writer left, it started lacking creativity, storylines were becoming predictable, that type of thing. Angeline says World War Z, because I didn't know it was about zombies. The beginning started off normal, and then suddenly there were zombies out of nowhere. The start was incongruent to what I expect from a horror paranormal. The color in the beginning is bright, so I was really terrible. Yes, I didn't watch the preview beforehand. Yes, I actually agree with you. Yeah, most Angeline today, most definitely. I think also that's how I felt about I think the last Harry Potter movie because I didn't like how Lord Voldemort was actually portrayed in the movie. I just thought it was weird. Michael says I can name a few, but one has to be Jumanji. It seems like the Rock plays the same character in every film. Big tough guy gets crushed by a massive bug, and then boom, Kevin Hart comes out of nowhere to somehow save him. Yeah, it was also like that in another film that The Rock did with Kevin Hart. Um, I think jungle films are way too one-dimensional because there's always a hidden treasure, a damsel in distress, and some lady being in the end. Yes. Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing. Most definitely, I agree with you with that, with the Jumanji film. And then Chantal says, I love the 100 series at the beginning. It was set in an outer space due to Earth not being habitable and only 100 people left to determine how they would survive. They eventually returned back to Earth and found more people that survived. There were lots of elements of magic fantasy, but then they started to become too futuristic. And when the one protagonist turned into a bad guy in the end, oh gosh, I hated when writers do that, by the way, even though he was um, even though he was just believing in his cause, but he got killed for it by one of his best friends and a main character in the series. So thank you so much for sharing, guys. And there's a reason why I actually asked the question. So when you write your screenplay, so I decided to invent this thing called the SCAD method in terms of editing your screenplay. So SCAD stands for scene transition, characterization, action, and dialogue. Right. So the SCAD method is a useful way to actually edit your screenplay. Ideally, in the workspace, you are required to produce at least 3 drafts before you officially submit it to a director and producer. So for the portfolio, when you use the SCAD format, I want you to really want you to take into the consideration of the following. So with the scene transition, how does the one scene, which oh, good Lord, I cannot see, just let me see if I can just actually modify this slide. Okay, so with the scene transition, how does the one scene relate to the previous scenes? In other words, what is the connection between scene 1 and the transition to another scene, which is scene 2? And then with characterization, in other words, who are the lead characters? Who are your lead characters in your screenplay? And who are your minor characters? Just remember that with the minor characters, they also have an important role to play, just like your lead characters. Then with the action, this is where you need to take into consideration the overall aesthetic of the scene. So what is the mood like? And this often takes place before the dialogue commences. And with the aesthetic should be a giveaway in terms of is it foreshadowing the dialogue that's about to commence, the kind of dialogue, or maybe the events that are going to unfold. And then last but most importantly, dialogue. So here, what is the character significance or even role in each scene? So this is what I mean when I talk about using the SCAD method when editing your screenplay. So in terms of a format, I'm not going to go through this slide because I think we did cover it in the how to write a drama on screen, how to write the drama on screenplay in the previous section. I think we have run out of time, which is a bit unfortunate. So what I'm going to do is that for the next session, I am going to revisit the screenplay aspect before I move on to the next section. So in other words, the next workshop is going to be covering two literary genres in one workshop. But because of time, I do unfortunately have to stop here. Are there any questions that pertain to the upcoming assignment or today's lesson? And guys, please speak now or forever hold your peace, because listen, when I was on sick leave, I got so many emails from students asking me questions about assignment 2. And I thought to myself, this is the reason why I have a Q&A session after each workshop. So guys, if you have any questions with regards to the assignment or the presentation, please ask. So Angeline, so next week is the short story editing session. Yes, so it is the short story, plus we are going to revisit the editing of your editing of the screenplay and also pitching your screenplay. So I see Michael, your hand is up.
um, one more question that's off topic, or well, still part of the topic. Back to the poetry. I wrote a
Yes.
poem in my first year
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
I got feedback. Um, I got feedback on it, and I would love
Yeah.
to use it in my portfolio. However, I'm not sure if I'll be able to. I'm obviously going to edit and change a few things. However, there
Mhm.
will be a few aspects that are still the same. Will I
Mhm.
be able to use that in my portfolio?
Yes, you are actually more than welcome to do that. And
Okay.
from the writers, as a writer, I'm saying it from a lecturer's point of view and also from an author's point of view. So when I write a story or a novel, I always revisit stuff that I wrote in 2013, stuff that I wrote in 2014, and say, okay, how can I put it in this book that I'm working on? How can I tweak it here and there? And in reality, in the real world of writing and publishing, a lot of authors actually do that. That's how they are able to end up producing a lot of publications. So you are more than welcome to do that for the poetry.
Okay. The only reason why I asked is because I'm pretty sure it will increase the similarity score on Turnitin.
Mhm.
So that was the only reason why I was skeptical using it. However, it actually touches on the
Mhm.
themes that I listed in assignment two. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's that's why I wanted to include it.
yeah. Just remember with Turnitin, right? If the similarity score, let's say your similarity score is 45%, right?
Hmm.
And 10% of that 45% is from a previous submission from first year. And the author of that previous submission from the first year is actually you, then for me, I would say no, that's not a red flag for me. However, if, for example, your score is 45% and that 10%, right, is from another student's submission that was copied word for word, then it would be a red flag. But if it's from your work that was previously done, then it's not a red flag for me.
Okay, perfect. And then one more question.
Yes.
um, so in assignment two, we were asked to do a character list for our dramatic plays,
Mhm.
and I'm pretty sure you have to include that in the portfolio as well. Is it
Yes.
okay to use the exact same character list with the descriptions and everything? Obviously,
Yeah.
tweaking it here and there from the feedback that we received um, from assignment two. Will it be okay to use the
Yes.
exact same one, or do we have to draft a completely new one?
Yeah, you can actually use the same one. Remember, assignment two, the purpose of assignment two is that you are essentially setting the scene for assignment three, which is the portfolio. And then, and I'm also glad that you asked that question because um, in the OneDrive folder, where I've uploaded the previous recordings, I have created another folder called additional resources where I uploaded an example of a play that includes a log line, a character list, a setting,
Yes.
and dialogue. Just in case perhaps you might find yourself hitting that roadblock, but you are welcome to use stuff on your assignment too in the portfolio because remember, the purpose of assignment 2 is that you are showcasing how you're actually going to produce the final product.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I think that's all my questions for the evening.
All right, no problem. Are there any other questions before we end today's session? So I see someone is typing, no, very good. Okay, perfect. So what I'll do is I'm going to start recording. And then that, thank you so much everyone for joining today's session. Just remember next week we are going to revisit today's session and